Hello, I'm Dane, and welcome to another episode of Dax Jutsu. In one of my previous videos, I discussed how to connect to multiple workbooks with multiple worksheets in a folder. But that one did not involve a lot of transformations. It was on the simpler side of things, I would say. In today's episode, we'll still connect to multiple workbooks with multiple worksheets, but we will also tackle a more complex scenario. So our goal for today is to consolidate all these three files, which are in the same folder, into a one single table. They have the same structures, just that we don't know which row the data starts from. For example, for 2010, it has this text 2010 data, and the actual data starts at row 5. For 2008, it starts at row 6, and for 2009, it has the word data and starts at row 4. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close these files, and I'll be using Power Query and Excel to combine all these files into a single table. So let me copy the folder first, and I'll go to data, get data, and then get data from file and select folder. Mm. Open and transform data. We will not be using the combine and transform data because that one is pretty limiting, and we have quite a more complex scenario. So I'll just duplicate this one first. Oh no, not duplicate. So what I'm going to do is first, yeah, I should have duplicated. Duplicate this one first, and then I'll try to access this file, the first file, 2008. So this transformation used the Excel dot workbook connector. So which means that I can use the same function to access the content of this binary column. So I'll go add and um, so I'll just type Excel and then content. So this function is telling me, or telling Power Query rather, that this the binary files in this column are actually Excel files. But before that, let me just make sure that I'm actually selecting just the Excel files. And there shouldn't be any temporary file thingy. And to make this cleaner, let's remove all the other columns. Remove other columns. Insert. And remove this one as well. And then you will expand this. So we are interested in item and data. And there's one more. We also need kind because we want to know whether we're looking at a worksheet or a table or filtered table. Sheet, yes. Sheet. Okay. So here's the content of our worksheet. Now let's go to the other query and then let's see what this is going to do. Let's go what okay, so what we did earlier was we selected 2008. So we've navigated to 2008 here, 2008. And then we imported this binary file as an Excel file. And after this, we'll get inside the worksheet. And here we go. So there are a lot of things we can do here. First approach is something that is not as dynamic as we want to look for a column that doesn't have any blank value in them. What I mean is that there is no blank value that is contained in the actual data. So let's just assume that date recorded doesn't have a blank value because it's date recorded. There should be a date, right? But this one is not a safe approach because one of these rows might contain a blank date and there are actually a valid data. It's just that there is no date. But for the sake of illustration, we will use this one. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to column 4 and remove empty. And then I'll use the first row as the headers. So now we've done our transformation. I'll go ahead and duplicate this one. And then I'll apply the transformation I use in here to these tables in this query. So let's just rename this query first as method 1. Okay, and I'll copy the code and I'll add a column. So this will contain our table. But we don't need all these codes. We just need to select the ones needed. So we'll start with connecting to this table. So where is that? We've already imported the file as Excel, so we don't need this step here. Here we'll start. So here is our step. I'll just change this one to source, and I'll make sure that that next step is actually referencing source as the previous step, the source. And this is referencing the name of the previous step. So we want to make sure that this is referencing the data column. That's data column. Data. And we actually don't need a change type step because once we expand, the tables, the data types will not be inherited. We will still have to manually set the data types. And I really wish Power Query would inherit the data types we've set inside this transformation, but it won't. So, okay, there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'll be selecting just the columns I need. I'll remove the other columns, and then I'll expand this. And of course, I'll change the data type. And let's just assume that Power Query will be able to get the data types correctly. Attack data type, and here we go. So this is our first method. Now let's go to our second method, which is more of a foolproof way of getting to the first row of the data. So I'll remove these other steps. Now here's what we want to do. We want to know the location or the index number of this MOYR row. And how do we do that? I'll create another step. Okay, so I'll just change and name the step to worksheet. I'll create another step. And in this step, I'll be drilling into column 1 as a list. Okay, and then we will use a function that will find the position of MOYR. So let this be column 1 equals in list dot position of. Oops. Mm, yeah, position of. Oops. So let's see. So we have a list, and then we need to find the value. So position of our list, column 1, and position of MOYR. Check. It says position 5, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because the index in Power Query starts at 0. So list is position, or MOYR is position 5. But what we want to do is to skip the first 5 rows, which is, yes, that's correct, position 5. So we'll be using this position here. So we name this to MOYR. And we'll be using this to skip 5 rows. So I'll insert another custom step, and I'll reference this one to worksheet. Then I'll just rename this to skip rows dynamically. And we'll be skipping the first 5 rows. So how do we do that? Using the GUI, we can remove top rows and 5. Yep. So what we're going to do is we'll be copying the formula used in the step and put that in the previous step. And we'll be changing the name of the applied step it is referencing to, as well as the position of MOYR, which is MOYR. And then we'll remove this one. And let's remove this. After that, we'll be using the first row as a header and remove the change type step. Let's wait for a while. Okay, we're done. So like what we did with the other method, we'll be copying the code. Then I'll duplicate this. I'll rename this to method 2. And I'll change the formula in this custom column, not that custom. Where is that? Oops, sorry. I duplicated the wrong query. So, okay, I'll just use this query and change this to. I'll duplicate this, duplicate, and change that to method 2. And then I'll delete all the other steps. And let's clean this up a bit. I'll be keeping okay. Oh, I think I missed something. This is directly connecting to that workbook. So I'll just copy this, duplicate this one instead. Delete this. And then I'll go back to that step. Rows and custom. Here we go. So I'll be deleting all the other steps. Add custom. And now I'll be pasting that code. There's no way for me to expand this dialog box. So source. So we are done with importing. And I'll just point this to data. Where is she? Show error. Let's so data worship column. So that's right. Let source equals data. And in that data, I'll just turn that. Here we go. I think I deleted a lot of stuff, which are unnecessary. So we already have data, and so I'll just keep the name of the step as worksheet. Worksheet. Here we go. Let's see. Okay. And before we expand that, let's make sure to keep just the columns we need. So method 2, then expand this. Okay. And after that, let's assume that Power Query does a very good job at detecting data types. So we still have this OPM remark, so this is probably a text. If we add for one, this is also probably a text. And let's delete all those other steps. And then here we go. The next thing that we are going to do is to just load this to a table in an Excel file or a semantic model in Power BI. Well, that's it from me. I hope you learned something and thank you for staying with me. Have a good one. Bye bye.